It is fall in the Northeast, and as you can see, we've been getting hit with some frost. These pumpkins, they just didn't make it. But then again, I wouldn't have expected them to. There are different levels of frost and freeze, and that kind of determines what keeps going, what keeps growing, and how your garden season declines and ends. So the first to get hit are going to be those that are sensitive to frost, that get hit in a light frost. And those are things like these pumpkins, squash, tomatoes, peppers, all your tender annuals, all your tender vegetables. A lot of things will actually survive a light frost, or at least survive through the first few of them. These pumpkins, as a matter of fact, didn't get really harmed in the first one, but in the second couple they did. It was a longer freeze, longer time that they spent with frost on their leaves, and it damaged and basically killed them. There might be a little life left in those stems, but there's nothing productive going on here. These mums, on the other hand, didn't really bat an eye at those first light frosts. Some of them, if you look over at these other beds, didn't do as well, but we have had a combination of light frost down to more moderate frosts. We haven't had a hard freeze yet, and that's why we have a lot of things that are keeping on going here. The sunflowers over here, well, they actually did pretty well through the first few frosts. As they got a little more towards the moderate end, then we started to see some frost damage, but that's also a combination of them just kind of being spent and done anyway. These were a late planting of sunflowers, so we were happy to get that far with them. So what are your levels of frost? They are light, which again is going to be your tenderest of vegetation, your most tender annuals, those that probably aren't really naturally designed to grow and live where you do, but that we put in the garden every year as new transplants, and we know they're not going to survive a frost. Moderate is down to around below 25 to 28 degrees in Fahrenheit, and then a hard freeze is lower than that, lower than 25 or under 28 for a longer period of 4 hours or more. So you do have several things that can survive even through a moderate frost. Your brassicas, broccoli, things like that, if the days are warming up, they can come back, rebound, and keep producing. What do you do at each stage? Well, there comes a time when you just need to let things go. If I was really determined to keep these pumpkins going, I could have tried covering them, but it was a time of year that we were all set, we were done with them. I wasn't expecting them to survive. Coverings, some good coverings to use are things like this row cover fabric that's getting blown in the wind here. But you know, this is made to protect, and it can actually give some pretty good protection, even sometimes down to a moderate frost. But once you get to the lower end of moderate frost, it's not really going to protect those most tender. It will give a jump to some of your in-between things, and it can, even though you don't necessarily need to protect things like kale and broccoli, it can help them just to reduce damage. Those things can get a little singed, like these mums. They can get singed even though the plants are alive. The buds are kind of fried, but if you want to keep that display going, that might be worth covering through both the light and moderate frost. Some other options are to grow in something like these easy high tunnels. Now, I wouldn't try and grow anything that was a warm weather crop, but I might do this for if I wanted to keep some good lettuces and greens growing. Those may survive the frost anyway, but they're going to do even better if they're covered. The trick with anything plastic, which this caterpillar tunnel is plastic, is to not let that touch the plants, because the plastic itself transfers cold. So, you know, that's a word of caution. A lot of us were taught to cover with things like the black plastic. That will also transfer cold. But some other things you can do are just, you know, this is a tablecloth that we had from a party here that didn't make the wine spills, so that became relegated to garden covering. This old beat up dingy sheet, that's a garden covering, but these are nice fabric cloths that don't transfer the cold in the way that the plastic does. So again, you've got different levels of frost, so don't think that just because we get hit with the first light frost that your garden season's necessarily done. There's a lot that will keep going. If we look over here, you know, this lavender plant, this sage, this rosemary, that's all perfectly happy, and it's been frosted a few times. Once we get down into the hard freezes, this probably is going to be all done for, and honestly won't likely survive my winter here, but that's the state of growing where I live, and we all have those things that will and won't survive. So, you know, instead of thinking of frosts as a hard stop, think of them as a slowing down of your garden season. Protect what you want to keep going and you want to keep enjoying and harvesting when it's reasonable to do so. Be reasonable and let go of the more tender things. They're just not going to be worth the effort. And then plan, you know, to take some of the season off and go ahead and enjoy that rest period that winter gives you.